Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host. Let's get into this. So, hi guys. No periodic table or alien talk today. However, we do have something that the creator wanted us to go over. Now, I've been telling you guys that I've been getting these clusters of, we jump right into it. I don't want to waste y'all time. All right. We have these clusters. I've been getting these clusters of downloads, and if you are anything like me, tapping into the ethers, tapping into the spirit realm, tapping into your gifts, using your gifts to guide you and allowing the creator, actually opening yourself up, because there's a difference between consciously, navigating through this life in these realms and just being here, right? There's a major difference. Once you are conscious, you are actively pursuing what it is that the creator wants, hopefully, right? If you're conscious and using your subconscious. Because it is Ramadan, I was trying to find a way to balance studying and charting through these spiritual waters, if you will, right? For lack of better terms. But the creator wanted to point out all of the different celestial activity that's also going on during this time. Of course, during the month of Ramadan, this is how we come up with Ramadan, right? The different phases and cycles of the moon. And we talked about this before, right? And you can look at the different calendars to get a better idea of the different transitions that are going on and how it affects us. The fixed signs, and you can just look this up to see what signs are fixed, what are mutable, what are cardinal. You can look that up, okay? The fixed signs are going to be more affected, but I wanted to mainly, and we talked about how the different phases and placements will affect us. And if we paid attention to our charts, and you will have to know your chart to know what will affect you, right? We also talked about how Mercury isn't going to be retrograde until the 1st of April. This is important, okay? We are going through a lot of different cycles and phases. And like I said, because it's the month of Ramadan, I was trying to balance out how I'm going to be able to study. Now, I didn't grow up in a Muslim household. I didn't take my Shahada until I was 16, about 2.5 weeks after my father was murdered, and about 2 months after my brother was tragically killed in a car accident. So my grandma, she was Christian. Well, she was actively Baptist or Pentecostal by the time I had gotten to know her. Excuse the noise in the background. This ain't nothing but the enemy trying to stop me. However, the point that I'm making is learning how to balance who you are in the spiritual, in the physical realms. We've gone over a plethora of conversations and just topics that are related to who we are in the spirit versus who we are in the physical. And it's important for us to be able to have that balance, because if you don't know who you are walking around in the physical, then, right, it's kind of like you're a crazy person. You're going to get put in a straitjacket. If you don't know who you are in the spirit realm, it's like you're walking around with a blindfold on, right? Getting to know yourself in all of these different realms is important. I think for you to get a better gist of that is to go back to the topic that we had about knowing your spiritual name. What is your name in the spirit? And then there was another topic that we went over a little more recently, and it was in regards to the job that you have here in the physical doesn't necessarily always reflect who you are in the spirit. Those are two segments that I feel if you listen to them, they will help you out greatly if you are struggling with balance. And this doesn't mean that you're not fully allowing the Creator to use you. It doesn't mean that you are confused or lost. It just simply means that you're trying to gain a better handle and idea on what it is that you should be doing, right? God doesn't make mistakes. God has his own timing, and we don't have to always understand that. But when you do step into the understanding that the Creator does have his own schedule, then that is a sign of spiritual maturity. That means that you are understanding that your place in all of this is connected to a bunch of things that can't just pop off yet, right? It's like dominoes. One thing happens and then another thing happens. There's cause and effect. And we don't get to just pop off and do things simply because we want to, right? We have to understand that there's a divine order with everything. And I think the gist of this conversation is to kind of start learning how to prioritize your spiritual needs over your physical. Of course, the spirit realm comes first. And we always talk about that, right? How the spirit world is first. Everything happens there. And then it manifests down. And depending on our vibration, we get to see the manifestations that are going on up there, right? So it's not necessarily your duty to put the cart before the horse. You have to understand that you are at a point, and this is only for those who have gone through the major transitions and cycles. Until you get to that level of maturity, you won't really understand. And I'm not encouraging you to skip any steps, because this is like the cycles and the phases and stages of life. You know, you learn how to crawl, then you learn how to walk, then you learn how to run, then you learn how to ride a bicycle, then you learn how to rollerblade, then you learn how to roller skate, then you learn, right? You get to go through these different phases, and it's just the same in the spirit. And if you are going to walk this path, then you have to learn how to prioritize your spiritual needs. And I'm not saying your spiritual needs are before your physical needs, but they kind of are, right? You have to take care of your spirit. You have to understand that your spirit reigns supreme. So if you're going to be in a space where you're operating out of your spirituality in the physical, then you have to understand that your spiritual self needs to be stronger than your physical self. You have to understand that your spirit is in control and it's ahead of you in the physical, meaning everything that you're doing in the physical was kind of already preordained, if you will, by your spiritual self. Okay? So this is why fasting is important, prayer is important, abstaining from your own desires, right, is more important, because who you are and what you're doing in these different realms is connected all to your higher self. And this is why I always tell people, yes, the higher versions of yourself is what you want to obtain. But when you get to the highest, meaning there's nothing above it, you're done. You are no longer transitioning spiritually. You're no longer going through the cycles of life. You're no longer visiting the different dimensions. Your spirit is done and it's just in the darkness and you're out of the way. So I don't ever encourage anyone to tap into their highest self, because there are so many different versions of us. Taking care of your spiritual, all of your spiritual versions, right? And all of your spiritual versions can be your children, your ancestors, your soulmates. And your soulmates doesn't have to always be the people that you're having, these different personal relationships with. It can be your neighbor. It can be that one coworker that you've been working alongside for 10 years, 20 years. All of these things, your cat, right? Your dog that you've had since you were a 3-year-old. These are all things that are connected to your vibration. And it doesn't have to necessarily be who you are in this physical realm, right? These attachments that we pull with us into this realm is, again, a piece of who we are in other respects. And I would like to say that if you are working on elevating yourself, you have to be able to pull away from the things that are attached to you in the physical realm. And sometimes that's sex, sometimes it's food, sometimes it's drinking and smoking, sometimes it's a bad attitude, sometimes it's clothes, sometimes it's the things that you listen to and watch, right, on TV or the radio. You don't have to always understand it, but your spirit dwells in multiple dimensions. And the best way to show yourself that you are prioritizing your spiritual self is to isolate your spirit here in this room that you're consciously in. Even if you wanted to start catering to the version of you that are in your dreams, because that is the gateway. It's one of the paths, that you take. If you want to prioritize meditating, if you wanted to prioritize praying, if you wanted to prioritize reading your spiritual text, however it goes, place some priority over your spiritual self, because your spiritual self is the self that you are taking with you in all of the other realms. And we've had similar conversations, right, about your spiritual self going with you everywhere and how it needs to stay intact but also expand at the same time. We've had multiple conversations, but I think this conversation is more so you just have to prioritize, okay? You have to know that the different versions of yourself is connected to your highest self, and this version of you that you are currently in isn't necessarily, going to get weaker or stronger. It's all about you. This is why we talk about coexisting with the creator in the different realms, because this is what's going to determine the direction your frequency goes. If it's going to go higher or lower or stay here. And the people who keep their frequency the same and they don't really put effort into advancing, this is how you kind of get stuck in one place and have to reincarnate and do this over, or your children have to repeat cycles. And by the way, that is a descension, okay? That's not an ascension. When your children have to take on your karma, that's a descension in spirit, okay? Because again, those are extensions of who you are. So it's important to just understand that, right? I don't want to go on and on. That's just the gist. Prioritize your spiritual self, all right? But I'm going to end it here. I do love y'all. I hope y'all are enjoying y'all's weekend. I hope y'all been relaxing in this rain. It's kind of cold in Jersey. But yeah, that's it. Hope y'all enjoying your weekend and drinking your water, eating your fruit and vegetables, and sipping on your own tea because it is most definitely free. I got some honey for you too. All right. Love y'all. Peace.